Hello and welcome to the Scenic Route with me, Victoria Stewart, where we talk about roads less traveled in our lives or the roads we didn't expect to travel that actually have taken us on an adventure we never expected. So today I'm very excited to have Stephanie Jones. She's a licensed clinical social worker and a clinical consultant. So welcome, Stephanie.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more thoroughly?
Yeah. Well, my name is Stephanie. As you said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a clinical consultant, and I have about 20 years of experience doing both micro and macro social work, mostly as a therapist. And I work a lot with children, families, women, and a lot of different, like, I've done a lot of systems work at local levels where we've worked on strategic plans, how to make your community more trauma informed, how to, come up with some different community plans around mental health organizing. So it's kind of my background and, yeah, so just for what I've been doing. Yeah.
So, when you were a kid or growing up or when you went to college, is this what you always wanted to do? Did you want to be in social work?
Um, I didn't know a lot about social work when I was a kid. I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer. And I found that, like, as I got to college and I took a couple like psychology classes, I was like, you know what, this could be related to law because I want to understand why people do what they do. And so I really got into like psychology, and I also have a double major in women's studies, so I liked looking at like the intersection of gender and race and how a lot of that factors into why things are different for a lot of people and why certain people have more advantages than others. And so I really leaned into that. And I found that with that combination, social work was a lot more, um, like I could do a lot more with it
Mm-hmm.
around that. So yeah.
Cool. So, when you finished school, how did you implement your degree? Like, what did you go do to
So
start off with?
right out of like undergrad, I worked at a residential group home for at-risk youth. And it was a very intense. I was an intern there, so
Mm-hmm.
if anyone's ever seen that show, The Pit, it was kind of like that, but for mental health. On your feet a lot, de-escalating. There were things where you had to like give medication. And so you were very much at the precipice of like health and mental health and trying to help people stabilize, specifically kids. And so kind of, um, I would call it like a huge jumping off point. Like, it's like, if I can do this, I could do social work. And then I went to Ann Arbor to get my degree in social work for master's. And then I came back to the Triangle area here in North Carolina, and I did more intensive in-home, like high risk, high acuity support for families right out of grad school. It's interesting because like the first client that I ever had was a 15-year-old who had just gotten a bunch of legal charges, and I'm like, oh, it's my first day, and I'm gonna figure out what to do. And I realized, like, getting into that, like, a lot of the systems didn't have the support to try to help. So I was constantly like having anxiety and like sleep problems because I wasn't able to know what to do. A lot of like the supervisors and the people there like were pulled into a lot of different directions, and they couldn't. I don't think I even got trained fully
Mm-hmm.
on everything I needed to know, other than like you fill out like the initial paperwork and then they just throw you in. So yeah, and then there's a lot of like, it's like a difference in terms of like you're coming in trying to be using the skills that you got from social work school, but then there's also cultural barriers and a lot of other things to consider to get acclimated. And you want to do all the things, but it's hard. And so, yeah, it wasn't until I started my associates program where it's like you work on trying to get fully licensed. I ended up with a really good supervisor, and I'd go and I'd staff cases with him, and I'd be like, here is what's going. And not only did I get a framework for how to approach families better, like I felt better that I was like, someone's telling me that I'm developmentally where I need to be, like you are doing well, like, in terms of what you're doing. So I just see that being such a gift, and it's a gift I really want to have for other providers or people just getting into the field, entry level social workers, to help. Because you go in and you don't know if you're doing it's like you're working with the families, but you might be working in a vacuum and not knowing exactly what's working. So yeah, especially with high acuity families, it can be a lot.
So here's a question, since I am not in the therapeutic field and maybe the listeners are not also. What does high acuity mean?
It means that someone is at risk of going to the hospital. They may or may not be diagnosed, or if they are, they're not taking medication as prescribed, or there's a lot of conflict in the home where maybe the police have come out, maybe a kiddo is at risk of running away or being involved with like negative peers, or there's also like more on the depression side, like substance use or self-harming behavior, those kind of things, which, to be honest, a lot of new social workers coming out of grad school get put into situations where there is very high acuity in the caseloads that they get. And we're finding that entry level social workers are getting the highest acute cases, whereas they don't have the most experience, where it should be the other way around. Like people who have been in the field for a while could be able to help support more. But that is a systemic thing that I've noticed has been a concern, just because as far as like resource management goes, like a lot of agencies can only afford to pay entry level folks, and then those are the people that end up like needing a lot more support, and they have Medicaid, or they're more likely to not get the good quality or wraparound care that way either, if that makes sense. So you get thrown it, you don't have all the skills, and you gotta figure it out. But who's supporting them is what is also the thing. Yeah.
So I'm curious, as you were making your way through your career, like what has gotten the consultant piece going? Was there something that happened as you were going in your own personal life that kind of was like, okay, something needs to be different, or I would like to do something differently?
Yeah. So it was actually two different, like, I call them like touchstone experiences, or really, really big one. So from a while back, I worked in managed care, and that was the job that I was like, yes, I really love doing community work. I would actually do consultative work, where people would call and ask for technical assistance. Like, I've got this kid, what resources and services can I get? And I also facilitated a lot of different meetings. But one of the things that stood out was we did cover like a variety of different catchment areas. And what would happen is we would give feedback about what the stakeholders were wanting us to do. And we were so big that things were not necessarily getting done fast enough. And it wasn't until um, things were like there were different groups wanting to disengage from us that our company hired some healthcare and social work consultants. And we had one that came in, and she like basically did an assessment and called all of our stakeholders, interviewed us, interviewed everything, and like put out a whole bunch of different recommendations. And most of them were things that we were already telling them for years, and but it coming from a third party
Mm-hmm.
that has no stake other than it's like, I'm going to do my job with this framework I have. And things were starting to go in the right direction. I really believe we were doing what we could do. And then COVID happened, and
Yeah.
things really fell apart after that. But we were getting to a point where it could have gotten a lot better. Um, and that's where I was like, you know what? I really think that like with enough industry experience, people like there can be therapists, there can be, you know, other healthcare workers being in those roles to try to consult with different agencies and different groups around what could work better. And so that was one that got me really, really, I'm like, you know what? That is a good thing, because this is where the real change needs to happen, is systemically. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the individual people working, you know. If anything, like I loved everybody I worked with locally. Like they were the sweetest people, and they would always go out of their way for the clients and really got their energy from that. But it was really the bigger systemic politics that really kind of was like, yeah, I don't know. The other thing was also when I was in a group practice setting a few years after that. We like it was one of those things that during COVID, um, things got kind of different in the system. Like group practice owners were also starting to expand because during COVID, everybody needed therapy. And so
Mm-hmm.
there was this like boom for the group practice world. And so I was working for a group practice before COVID. And then um, we were like really cohesive, and, you know, we got to have a lot of autonomy over our schedules and over like what we wanted to do. And then when COVID happened, our group practice owner expanded different sites
Mm-hmm.
and like hired a whole bunch of people, and it just got more scaled to where everybody was isolated. And you were already kind of isolated with COVID, but then even coming out of COVID, it was that way too. And it became more of like a profit first feel rather than we are a team. Like if you're in two other different offices, you may have never even met that other group of people. Whereas
Right.
when things are kind of small and like a two office, that you can get to know people intimately. And not saying you can't do that with a bigger group, but there has to be like work put into building those relationships and
Yeah.
that support infrastructure. So those two main experiences really carved this out. This is why I really want to do this work with a lot of agencies, particularly group practice workers and the group practice owners, because they both are, it's like they're all trying to do the same thing, but they have a different take. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why when people ask me, you know, who would you consider your client? Who is she? Who is it? And I'm like, my client isn't a person, it's a system. Like, and
Yeah.
it would be everybody in that. And I think people are more likely to be honest and give a better take to a third party person that's not working at the agency, so they can be honest and it come from like your business, you know, like you're getting the survey from an out of like it's out of your company. So because I think a lot of people are hesitant to like give their full transparency sometimes if it's coming internally from your agency, but if it's coming from a third party trying to help, that might be a better take.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
I feel like it's you can when they say it's anonymous and it's not going to come back to you, it's easier to believe it if it's an outside company because they really can take the data and scrub it. It's hard to believe it sometimes unless you don't mind what you're saying and you're like, whatever, it doesn't matter if they know it was me, right? But it's hard to imagine that, my boss could figure out that I'm the one who said this, right? Like it's can be
Right.
scary. Can be scary. Like, how can I be honest without it coming if especially if it's constructive criticism, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen that where you don't get the most honest take from
Yeah.
some people worried about it coming back. So it's like, I really feel this way, but I'm not going to say it. But then I've noticed the people that have been in the industry longer, like 20 plus, they're like, nope, I'm going to give constructive feedback, and they will, and they don't care. But I think it's those like early, entry level or mid level folks that are like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want this to come back to me. And like, you know, and some people have very, very unique takes on things. And some people are like, no, I'm fine how things are. I don't see any problems. But we just don't know unless we get like an honest like representation of the data. And that's one thing I would be doing, is trying to do those staff interviews and more staff surveys and stuff like that. So yeah.
So I'm curious, in your 20 years of experience, more than 20 years of experience,
Hmm.
I'm assuming there's some trends that you've been seeing, whether it's in the system, in the structures, like you were talking about, that the folks with the least experience are getting the hardest cases at the start without having that potentially, maybe not everywhere, but like in general, not mentorship, everything else. W- w- What are the biggest maybe trends that you're really excited about, like working on with your clients?
Well, for consultation, one of the things that I found to be the most effective type of strategy to try to help group practice owners or agency leadership is really around what's called developing a trauma informed workplace design. So that's basically where you set up different uh, policies and expectations around being more trauma informed. And what that could look like is, for example, there's like 6 pillars to the trauma informed model, and one of them is on safety. So you have to have psychological safety in your leadership and in your policies, where somebody can feel like coming to talk to you if they're feeling burned out, or if they're feeling like their caseload is not working for them, or they're not sleeping, and that it be considered what's called like a no fault learning experience. So if you're going to report, I'm struggling with this, you're not going to get in trouble. Like that,
Hmm.
it's expected that because we are like in healthcare, we are going to have, and we are going to be impacted by our clients and the work we do. And especially around the idea of like secondary trauma, where it's like I'm getting some of these symptoms that my clients have because I'm impacted by the work I'm doing with them. And when I talk to my supervisor to get tips and coaching, I want it to be like um I want it to be a shame-free and learning experience, rather than I'm worried about getting in trouble for having these feelings, because we should just be expected to have these feelings at this point. Even nurses and doctors, like we're human, and there's a reason why like other types of automation can't do what we do. So that's one of them. The other one is around like and I'll just give like a few examples of the pillars. Another one is trustworthiness and transparency. So it's the idea of like everything that is going on, we communicate effectively. We do meetings or newsletters, and we are just completely transparent about things that are happening, like different ways that people could get involved. And that increases the trust level, because I think when things happen and there's not been any communication, and what ends up happening is there's a lot of like water cooler anxiety, stressful conversations when people aren't like given the facts of like, hey, XYZ is happening, or we're having this budget cut, or we're doing this. Like, transparency has to be core. Because I've seen that happen where things will happen and then the staff don't know, and the staff make a lot of suppositions, but a lot of it isn't necessarily about what's right or wrong or fact. It's a sentiment that they're getting. They're getting this vibe. And
Right.
so
Because they haven't been kept in the loop and like
Mhm.
understand like the context, right? It's just a here, let's drop this bomb or this announcement, and you guys
Yep.
didn't even know that there was a problem, let's say, that needed to be corrected.
Yeah. And that isn't just in healthcare and social work. It's a lot of industries now, especially with
Yeah.
like mass layoffs and like the tech industry, or a lot of it is like people are going to work and not knowing what they're going into. It's that has been, I think, a huge cultural shift that we've seen, like especially in the last 10 years. And a third of the folks I work with have been impacted by a RIF, a reduction in force. So like they've been laid off, their partner has been laid off, a parent, or they've survived a reduction in force. So like there's that to consider about like the trauma informed model of like, I've been impacted by myself being or the people I
Yeah.
work around. And so there is that like moral injury that comes with that, and why I think like this type of work is so needed right now. I focus in healthcare, but like I think it is needed in so many different industries, corporate especially, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because you hear about trauma informed coaching, trauma informed therapy, trauma informed other things. But I
Mhm.
don't know if I've ever heard anybody talk about like a trauma informed workplace or organization, which
Yeah.
makes sense, right? Like makes sense. And this idea that everybody's has this underlying maybe trauma or anxiety around being laid off, and if they don't know what is going on, it's just going to sit there and simmer and percolate for who knows how long, and then maybe the announcement has nothing to do with it, but they've been like this for
Unengaged. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. It's created this like this culture now where even folks who may or may not be late, like they're going in
mhm.
not knowing. So you're having a lot of that like baseline anxiety. Like I think just like baseline generalized anxiety is like a thing right now, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
the world is a little wild
yeah,
and uncertain.
very much. And so like this is a model that I think can like meet the needs of, like, if I have safety, if I can trust my employer, the other colleagues around me, if like I can get some really good supervision and peer support the way that I got really good supervision and peer support as a 24-year-old new social worker back in the day, you know.
Mhm.
The other piece of it that I feel like, once I think of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, at the bottom, you've got safety and do I have food? You know, can I regulate my nervous system at the bottom? But then you move up, you get to like more advanced, like executive functioning. So, one of my favorite parts of the trauma informed model is collaboration,
Mhm.
where you are constantly kind of working on the policy making and the like the standard operating procedures are improving, but you get the feedback from your staff too. Like you're working on them, you get their feedback, and some of them can even, if they want to join work groups, they can. And there's also the idea, at least in social work, like 80% of the work you do could be client facing and like billable and whatnot. And then the other 20% for programs or offering supervision to interns or doing some kind of creative project that would benefit the group overall. But yeah, and so that that's one of them that like it's like if you can take it up a notch, then you can be a very creative think tank of a agency, and the staff are likely to want to stay.
Yeah, because you've satisfied the underlying needs. So the ability to make space and be creative opens up.
Yep.
And the staff feels, what's the right word? Valued.
Safe.
And their input is considered. And it's like, well, if my voice is being heard, that means I can speak more of my voice, give my ideas, because you're already the safety piece and everything else is satisfied, and you can start going up the like providing that and that value to your employee that, like you said, they're going to want to stay because they're doing good work, they're being looked after, and they get to be creative and feel like they're helping make things better and create change, right?
Absolutely. And some of them, the other buy-in, I think, with like some of the agency folks is I think that's the piece is like, yes, these are businesses and they have to have like a way to pull in money, but that there are ways to do that and have people be creative, like especially if someone wants to create another program and bring more folks in. It doesn't all have to go through insurance. There could be like different funding streams or different ways of like having creative programs that can bring in money, but also allow the staff to thrive. And and there's also like different models around like setting up collectives in lieu of like group practice, and where a lot of therapists like share their work together and have the whole setup like in a way that is more interdependent in a way. So
rather than hierarchical.
Right. Because I know a lot of group practice owners go into like, hey, I want to create this world outside of like the grind. And if you're not careful and intentional in doing this type of work, you may replicate the type of model, the hierarchical model that you not ran away from, but that you did not want to cultivate when you started your group practice or you started wanting to be on your own. It takes a lot of intentionality to be anti-corporate. I don't think that corporate is inevitable with things, but if there's not like some checks and balances for how to do things,
almost inevitable, like you're saying, unless you're very clear and set your values. Like before you start, you check in and you stay there. Because I mean that happens to all of us, right? Like you might like myself, right? Like I left my 9 to 5 and I catch myself working as hard as I did then. And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't, I was like, I want to create more spaciousness in my day. Like I've done the like 12-hour days, 3 weeks straight working. Like that is not what this part of my life is supposed to be. But in our culture, right, like the hustle, the grind is the normal way. And then unless you're like checking in and stopping yourself, we fall back to the thing that we spent the majority of our life practicing.
Yeah. You have to constantly have a check on like am I doing things in my value system? And if so, how? And I do find that like a lot of folks in healthcare or like practice owners do have like these type of
Hmm.
values around like trauma informed, like they want to, they, it's
Yes.
just the implementation. It's like, how do I make this operational, and having it be like incorporated into the operation is the way to do that. And it's the way that they can check themselves and be like, yes, I am doing everything in alignment with my values. Because I think the thing that turns a lot of people off, not just in social work and healthcare, but when you go to meetings and they'll tote about their value, they'll say, these are my values and this is what we're, but that's not what's happening. Like the opposite is happening. And then you're noticing a lot more resources put into like fundraising or like other ventures that don't have anything to do with what the value is. So I think that disconnect really can bring people down or make them feel like, okay, like this doesn't feel quite right. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, do you have any kind of thoughts or guidance for whether it's agencies or group practice owners where, because, like, right, you still are trying to make money, and this environment is, at least in probably, I'm going to say generalize for the US. I don't know if it's different in other places, but it's not really set up to be fairly paid. So
Right.
how do you stay with your values but still manage and look after your employees and serve the community or the your clientele and like still make money?
There's a lot of different avenues for that. I know that like for you, I know the profit for keeps model I think has been a good one that
Hmm.
a lot of I know therapists and owners and stuff, like if they have a way of like tracking their money and noticing what they can do, and like if there are ways to like earmark funds for staff development, that can be a strategy. Another one is like leaning into the staff with the collaboration piece around, hey, if this person loves being an extrovert and outreach and is able to go in and do like community stuff, like I'm going to go to the school system and I'm going to do this demo and see if I can get some referrals to keep bringing things in. That's one way. There's also a way around like clinicians who want to like be creative, and there could be some like other funding sources around like doing intensives and stuff like that. So there are ways, and it doesn't always have to go, because I know insurance is hit or miss, but that is the primary thing that a lot of people, I would say, have a lot of like barriers with right now is around insurance. Um, so it makes it hard to like have that stability. But I do think that like with an intentional focus on staff development, um, and finding like some creative little funding streams, what you're going to find is if those staff stay for 2 to 3, 5 years, you are actually going to be in a better place financially, because every time someone leaves an agency, it's literally about like $10,000 to $20,000 that they have to scramble. Not only that, but they're losing those clients, or they may lose those clients. So
Mm,
not only are you losing a staff member, you're losing that staff member's, I don't want to say caseload, but like their investment basically
right.
around the work that they're doing. So it's probably even more than 10, like something like that. So
Yeah.
there's a way to think about it in terms of long term, and trusting your staff that they may actually have the solutions that they're looking for around like how can we find some more profit ideas, how can the group practice owners maybe use like YNAB or one of those other kinds of tools to like figure out,
Yeah.
like maybe they do have money for putting all of this stuff back into the staff, because it's like, if I can do this, and then there's a survey and the staff rated themselves lower, but then in 6 months they're feeling more energized and they're feeling more connected to the work in the agency, that person can stay and build more, you know? So it's just I think it's a paradigm shift around, I want my money right now, versus like how to have an investment in your values and in the staff you have. And it's just a different way of thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
To me, it sounds like you're being intentional all the way around
mhm,
with like looking at your money, setting up your values and the system how you want to run,
mhm,
and like taking the time to slow down and check in, right?
mhm.
Like we are so programmed faster, faster, faster. And I think like
Quantity over
everything,
quality, like keep them coming.
yes.
All the clients coming. I'm like, no,
And we need to like everywhere
yeah,
in like probably everybody's lives, every sort of industry. It's like, what if we all just slowed down a little
yeah,
and gave the space to like focus on who's here, right?
yeah. Yeah, I think of it as, you know, that book, Thinking Fast and Slow by, I'm blanking on the guy's name, where it's like they say that like if you are just like reacting and going
Yeah.
really, really fast, you might have biases or you're going to make mistakes. But if you have a slower process to how you do things, then it works out a lot better. I need to
Yeah.
look up the guy's name, but like it was a very unique read, because I was like, that is really something that could work in so many different settings. So yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you wish, whether you yourself when you were starting out knew, or something you would love to share with, whether it's a brand new social worker, maybe somebody who has just started a group practice? Like, is there anything that you're like, man, I really wish I knew this and I would love other people to know this like now?
One thing, it's actually twofold. One thing I wish I would have known was um like I would have liked that reassurance around like, this is the system, this is part of the system, this isn't your this, like, you having these reactions is not your fault. So when people tell you to like, oh, take a bubble bath, or you know, try to get some new workout routine under your belt, or try this, like, I kind of now I'm at this point where I'm like, I don't so the onus is on me. But when we're walking into these systems that have all this stuff going on and we're impacted by them, be honest that they're going to impact us. And yeah, I don't mind doing the yoga. I don't mind having a you know, a take on my nutrition and my sleep plan, but help me with that. Like, tell me that it's normal to go through this. Like, I wish that a lot of groups, especially help, and maybe they're doing this now, is around like giving them EAP, like therapy themselves, like so that they can have that, but it's part of the whole process of it, you know.
Right.
um, if it's not therapy, then it's really, really good supervision that you would need. Because I feel like a lot of new therapists, I know I felt this way, are blamed for having reactions or not being able to sleep. Like there's something wrong with you, rather than this is happening to you, which is the trauma informed model. Like what's wrong with you? Like you just need to, you know, do self care. Like I feel like that's a
Yeah.
trap. That's a huge
Yeah.
trap. I hope that we can get away from that as a culture, and notice that it's like, it's not us, it's these systems that are making us sick. and we are part of the solution, but we also need like we all need to work together and collaborate. So I also hope that like leadership groups and executive groups can be a little more trauma informed. So that's why the consultation piece that I would offer is a dive into that. So it's like, all right, here's what's going on with your staff. Here's the initial assessment. Here are my recommendations. Let's talk through this.
Right.
So, we've got assessment, we've got treatment plan, we've got follow up after 6 months, but I really wish that someone would have been like, you know what? This is normal. Like
This is
there's
normal.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah, I really wish someone would have done that for me, but I can do
Yeah.
that for myself right now. And it's almost like inner child work. If I am consulting with some new social workers, is like, yeah, you're not the problem. You're fine. You're doing well. You make a mistake. We're going to learn from it. There's no shame in it. We're going to talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like, here are some tools on how to
Yeah.
help yourself, right? Like, get some get some therapy, get a coach, go
Mm-hmm.
to the gym or something. And maybe even the organizations are like, here's a discount at the gym or whatever, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
not, the person's not left to their own devices having to sort out like what works best.
Correct. Yeah. They're not having to like navigate it. It's like, because then that can feel like one more thing.
Yeah.
And when it feels like one more thing and someone's
Yeah.
already tapped out, they're not going to do it.
No, it's too
It would be
much,
nice.
right?
Yeah, if the companies and the agencies could offer, hey, we've got this wellness day, or hey, we've got this pass to the Y, or like different types of like, I don't know, additional types of benefits, because it's like we
Right.
know this is a thing and you can use it, and then it's up to that person. They can choose to opt in or not.
Right.
So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish I had asked you?
Don't think so. I feel like you covered you're really good at this. Like somehow you just know what I want to talk about. Like even that last one, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the self-care trap, because that's a huge part of my training position is that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. It's not fair to put it on all on the
individual employee.
therapist. Yeah. With the individual person. Like, how are you supposed to know what things to try when you are like drowning? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to
Yeah.
make it easy.
And it can feel really patronizing to be told to do that when you're already exhausted. Like, all
Yeah.
right, so maybe the first thing I want to do is sleep for 12 hours and then I might do yoga. But oh, wait, maybe I need to eat at some point. That's right,
Yeah.
I eat. That whole thing. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and like this change that you're hoping to bring to this very important I don't want to say industry, but area, right? Like healthcare is huge and mental health, and like with the advent of all of our virtual stuff, like that lack of connection is real, right? So like having the support from all of you professionals, but then you professionals need support as well. Like this isn't a one-way street. You
Yeah.
all aren't superheroes. You are superheroes, but you can't just like Superman just stand in front of the sunshine and recharge your batteries.
Now, that would be lovely if we could do it that way. But that's not how. It's not how it works.
Unfortunately not.
To be
Lame.
fair, when I was like 15, I might have been able to be like that at 15, but now
Yeah,
that
when we're
I'm like
kids.
older, I'm like, no, no, it takes
No.
a lot more work to build that back up, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I
So
love the
where
community that you're setting up here,
Mhm.
because I think this is going to be a good resource for a lot of people to share
I
and
hope
talk.
so. I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So, um, where, if people are curious about your consulting work or anything else that you're doing, where would you like people to find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram, and the name of my Instagram is My Resilient Life Consulting.
Nice.
You can also find me on LinkedIn, and I have my website. So if you're interested in booking a call to see about if we'd be a good fit, I offer different tiers where it's like if you
Mhm.
wanted a month plan to just get your agency back on track, there's that. But then I also have like a 6 month option for more of a deep dive into how to set things up long term to be more trauma informed. So um,
Amazing.
I'll I'll give you all the thumbnails and everything.
Yes,
So yeah,
they'll all be in the show notes so people
yeah.
can just click or copy and paste depending on where they're looking. And thank you so much for being here. Thank
Thank
you, everybody who's listened and watched. And if you like this show, please rate, review, and subscribe and share with other people. So thank you, and see you next time.
thank you.